Now let's talk about the other direction. That's the impact of physics on society. What about society's impact on physics? And I'll be going over a lot about this in this lecture. So what is society? So, society is the interactions among people, okay, in a certain culture. And basically, I like to think of it as whatever makes it into the newspapers, okay? And as you see, politics, technology, art, sports, religion, sex. I think we'll cover most of these, except for the last one. But this is stuff you don't hear about in science class, okay? And so that's what, and we're going to talk about it today. And as I've shown you, science has an enormous impact on society, and people love science because of that, and because of its practical nature and its philosophical nature. But what kills me is that despite this, news media typically do a terrible job on science reporting, okay? And I like to do the analogy, as I say here, they would never do this bad a job when reporting on politics or religion or sports. Let's take the latter one, sports. You open up a paper, every single day, a third of the paper is devoted to sports, okay? And, you know, that's fine as it is, but my point here is that it's filled with statistics, right? The sports pages are filled with statistics and information. If you get one of those things wrong, okay, you get the batting average of some well-known ball player wrong, people will point that out instantly, okay? And say, you know, what are you, crazy? This guy is, you know, much better batter than this. You've you know, insulted him by misreporting his statistics there. On the other hand, a science article, I don't know how many times I've done this, where you open up a science, and you open up the newspaper, read a science article, and it's just wrong. It's just completely wrong from the get-go. And not only subtly wrong, but sometimes it can just be like completely opposite to what the science paper said. And then there's the vast number of articles where they get just the statistics wrong. They report some huge effect, when in fact, if you read carefully the science paper that it's based on, in fact, the effect is not statistically significant, for instance. That happens in medicine all the time. And so this really gets my goat. And it's just amazing to me that that can happen. So furthermore, I find it astonishing that people listen to judgments about things that are going on in society from political leaders, religious leaders, artists, entertainers, but yet not nearly as much from scientific leaders. I don't know if this group is probably special, but I don't know how many people know the name of any scientist whatsoever, okay, compared to a politician or a religious leader, an artist, or an entertainer. So society, there is a very dichotomy in society that I think that we have to solve with the importance of science and physics to society versus the way it gets reported and the way it gets acted on. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, very significant examples. Here's a list of questions, for instance, that are so important to you and so important to everyone that we cannot afford to not pay attention to these things. For instance, is the Earth warming up? If so, can we alleviate that? That's a science question, okay? It firmly is a physics question. Is the solution worth the cost is not a question for science, okay? So here's, what I'm trying to get at here is you got to understand where science's role is in society and where the other things come into play. So that's a political or an economic question. Can we physically generate enough energy for the people on Earth? That is a science question, and I'll talk about that briefly. Who pays for it, you know, and do we have to fight wars to do this or that kind of energy generation? That obviously is not a science question. So there's these different realms of responsibility in society. But you got to ask yourself, what is the science first before you can act on it? Another one is, can we reliably provide a defensive shield against missile attack, missile defense? That's a science question. But it has implications for things like the principle of mutual assured destruction. This is very, very much a political issue. And you can listen to scientists on this. But obviously politicians have a big role to play in answering something like that. How healthy can we make people? What is the best way to feed everyone? That is a biology issue, for instance. But you know, if you have to make restrictions on the distribution of food or how many children you can have, that's obviously, you know, it's not in the realm of science. And finally, like stem cells is a big issue these days. Can they cure disease? Again, a very biological, medical question. It's just, it's a factual thing. But is it moral? Is not a science question. And so you have to understand on these topics where to draw the line, okay? And you can't have, for instance, like I'll be talking about global warming, you can't have Rush Limbaugh talking about the facts of global warming, okay? He's not, he can do it, but don't listen to him, okay? Because he's not well versed in the understanding of science and science issues, okay? Now, if he has something to say about how absurd a particular solution is, that's his realm, okay? But I would recommend shutting off your ears when people who have no training in scientific facts start spouting off about scientific topics.